Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, we've got a couple of things to do now, so we'll have to whiz through these. But I wanted to get your take on the Chris Kaba case. Nigel Farages, the leader of Reform UK, has just released a video with his thoughts on it, so let's just watch that.
I'm beginning to think that we need more truth out there. And you'll remember, after Kaba died, there was deep unrest in London. Because the story was that an innocent man had been killed by the police. This guy was a bad gangster. And maybe if, rather like the riots that we had earlier this year, if the truth had been known then about who Chris Kaba was, maybe we wouldn't have had quite such tension on the streets of London. The public deserve, I believe, to know the truth at all times.
Well, there you go, Isabel. There's Nigel Farages' thoughts. One of the issues that I think has to be discussed here, I mean, quite clearly, from the videos we've seen, not only of the arrest or the initial pulling up of Chris Kaba, when he tried to ram the police car, and clearly, you know, the officers had occasion to feel extremely fearful for their safety and the safety of the public. And the jury took just 3 hours to find Sergeant Martyn Blake not guilty. But then we saw videos come out today of Chris Kaba just a month before he was pulled up by the police in 2022, chasing a guy through a nightclub and in the streets trying to shoot him. He was a member of a serious gang. So I think a couple of points I'd like to ask you. First of all, I'm going to ask you both questions at once because we've got to race through now. First of all, why did this case ever get to the court? Why did the Crown Prosecution Service decide that Sergeant Martyn Blake, deserved to face 2 years of agony waiting for this trial, murder trial, when quite clearly he was justified in what he did? And secondly, the London Mayor, Sadiq Khans, issued a statement basically exuding his disappointment in the fact that Sergeant Blake was exonerated, was acquitted. I mean, he said, I respect the decision made by the jury today. And then it was basically but, and it ends up saying, you know, there's clearly still a wider lack of trust in the police, particularly within the black community, that needs to be addressed. He's a race baiter, this guy. Chris Kaba, you know, no one celebrates the death of a young man. He was only 24. It's very sad, and I feel sorry for his family and friends. But he was a wrong 'un, and his life was always on a path that was going to end like this, if you ask me.
Well, Chris Kaba was not a good bloke. I mean, this is a guy who was a member of a notorious gang and had been involved in firearms offences. Indeed, he shot somebody in the leg, did he not, very shortly before this incident happened. You asked why the CPS charged him. I'll tell you why they charged him, because the CPS is under, quite obviously, very poor leadership. And a strong leader would have been able to see that it was not appropriate to go after the police officer in this case, and that the whole system of policing is going to collapse if we keep on persecuting our police officers as they try to keep us safe. And we cannot expect them to put themselves in the line of danger. You know, they're out there dealing with some very, very dangerous characters, and then the minute they do anything to either defend themselves or protect the public, they're the ones that find themselves being prosecuted. It is appalling. The CPS, instead of expressing its regret, because they put out a statement very similar, which basically was a thinly veiled, the jury got it wrong. You know, they said that they respected the decision. I don't think they really did. They should have been issuing a grovelling apology for ever putting this poor officer through the utter hell of having his reputation besmirched. And I do think that there is a serious debate to be had about whether, in fact, juries and indeed the public need to know the background in a case like this. As Nigel Farages was saying, sometimes it is actually so material to a situation that actually it's better for the truth to be out. And if that means that somebody doesn't get a fair trial, well, you know, these are difficult judgments to balance, aren't they? But in this case, guy was dead anyway.
He should not have been in court. Sergeant Blake should never have had to go through that. And you talk about the CPS being under very poor leadership. That's a tradition at the CPS. Guess who used to run it? Keir Starmer. Now, very quickly, Isabel, I wanted to get your take on this. A migrant gang member called William George, who killed an 18-year-old victim, stabbed him to death in front of shocked rush hour commuters in Manchester and was sentenced to 12 years. He was born in Belgium, came here at the age of 8, and we wanted to deport him. And we can't deport him because he's doing 12 years, and we can't deport him because the EU says so, because he committed his crime before Brexit, and it has been decided that he could only be deported on the imperative grounds of public security. Well, it seems to me that a guy who stabs a guy through the neck in front of horrified commuters in rush hour in Manchester might just be a threat to public security, and yet we're going to have to keep this guy because the EU told us. Your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts were, when I tried to read the explanation of why we had to keep him, my head was spinning. I mean, it's all complete gobbledygook, isn't it? We're no longer in the EU. This guy is a violent danger to society, and we shouldn't have to be looking after him at taxpayers' expense. Is he in prison still, or what's happened to him?
I think he's still doing his sentence. The Home Office, to its credit, fought a 6-year battle to deport him, but at the appeal court it was decided that he's not a threat to public security. So if you're in Manchester, be a bit careful. That's what I'd say. It's unbelievable.
You've got to wonder who these judges are putting first. You know, time and again, who is coming first in these judgments? Is it wider society, or is it criminals? Because this stuff, you know, it is becoming so corrosive and so divisive.
It really is, Isabel. Thank you so much for your time. Great to talk to you.